Leah, we need to go, now. Alex stood by the door, one shoe on, one shoe off. His phone buzzed on the counter, a jittery reminder of his mother's panicked voice moments earlier. Did she say what happened? I asked, rushing to grab my keys. No, just that everything's out on the lawn and she needs us. Sounded off, Leah. Really off. We sped through the quiet streets, my heart drumming in sync with the pulsing engine. Ruth had always been a strong woman, not the sort to easily panic. My fingers tightened around the wheel, my mind racing. When we pulled up to the house, the scene was jarring. Ruth's belongings were strewn across the yard. Old photo albums lay open, pages fluttering in the breeze. Furniture was haphazardly arranged, and Ruth sat on the porch, a calm smile on her face. It didn't fit. Mom? Alex rushed forward. What happened? Are you okay? Ruth looked up, her eyes twinkling with something I couldn't quite place. They think they've outsmarted me. Little do they know, their game has just begun. Alex and I exchanged a worried glance. What do you mean? Who did this? Ruth patted the space beside her, inviting us to sit. Sebastian and Trina. They want control, but I'm not so easily fooled. The weight of her words hung in the air. We had known Sebastian and Trina were ambitious, but this was beyond anything we imagined. Leah, they left her here, just abandoned her. Alex's voice cracked with frustration. Mom, you need to come with us. It's wrong. We can't just leave you here. Ruth nodded, standing up with a grace that belied her age. Let's gather what we can. The rest can wait. As we packed up Ruth's life, she seemed oddly composed. Alex kept shaking his head, eyes clouded with confusion. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Ruth's cryptic comment about the game had unsettled me deeply. Back at our place, we settled Ruth into the guest room. Alex and I sat in the kitchen, the silence stretching between us. Finally, he broke it. She said, their game has just begun, Leah. What does she mean? I shrugged, feeling the same unease. I don't know, but we need to find out. Ruth's presence changed the dynamic of our home completely. She acted as though nothing unusual had happened, her demeanor eerily serene. Over dinner, she was her usual bright self, discussing mundane things like the weather and neighborhood gossip. It was only later, as I watched her from the doorway of her room, that I caught a fleeting glimpse of something cold and calculating in her eyes. It disappeared almost as soon as it appeared. The next morning, Alex and I sat sipping coffee, our thoughts clearly on the same track. We need to talk to Sebastian and Trina, I suggested. Agreed, but let's do it carefully. They won't confess easily. Leah, I just want a family that's close. I thought moving back here would bring us together. His voice was laced with disappointment. I reached out, giving his hand a reassuring squeeze. We'll figure this out. We will. Days turned into a blur of whispered conversations and silent tensions. Alex set up a meeting with Sebastian. Meanwhile, Ruth continued her cryptic hints, always stopping just short of revealing her full hand. One night, as I walked past Ruth's room, I heard her murmur, "The pawns are in place." Yet my blood ran cold. Something serious was unfolding, and we were right in the middle of it. As we prepared to face Sebastian, a mixture of dread and determination settled in my chest. This wasn't just about Ruth anymore. It was about uncovering the truth, protecting our family, and maybe playing a game we hadn't known we'd entered. And I was ready to win. Sitting across from Sebastian was like confronting a glacier, cold and immovable. His eyes darted between Alex and me, a smirk playing on his lips. Trina sat beside him, flipping through her phone, acting disinterested. "So what's this about, little brother?" Sebastian finally asked, that smug grin not leaving his face. Alex clenched his fists under the table. "Mom's things were thrown out. She was scared and confused. We want to know why." Sebastian raised an eyebrow, leaning back in his chair. "Mom's condition is worsening. It's better for her to be with someone who can provide constant care." "And that someone is you?" Alex's voice dripped with sarcasm. Trina finally looked up, her expression bored. "She needs stability, Alex. Your job keeps you busy. We can provide what she needs." I felt my anger rising. Abandoning her on the porch doesn't sound like providing care. Sebastian shrugged. "She was being difficult. We had to make a point." Alex's face turned red. "A point? She's your mother." Sebastian's smirk faded, replaced by a cold glare. "Don't lecture me, Alex. I'm handling it." The tension in the room was suffocating. I realized we wouldn't get any honest answers here. Alex stood up abruptly, and I followed. "This isn't over, Sebastian," Alex said. Sebastian's eyes narrowed. "Make sure it's not. You wouldn't want to test me." As we left, I couldn't shake the feeling that Sebastian and Trina were hiding something far more sinister. They had no intention of letting Ruth regain control over her life. When we got home, Ruth was knitting in the living room, calm as ever. She glanced up at us. "How did it go?" she asked with a knowing smile. "Not well," Alex replied, dropping onto the couch. "Did you expect anything different?" Ruth's tone was light, but her eyes were sharp. We stayed silent for a moment before Ruth spoke again. "It's time you knew what Sebastian and Trina are really after." She motioned for us to sit. We listened as she began to unravel the tangled web of manipulation. Sebastian and Trina had been planning this for a long time. Ruth's assets, her will, everything was part of their strategy to secure control. "They think I'm losing my mind," Ruth said with a hint of amusement. "But I've been keeping tabs on them." "They've underestimated you," I said, admiration creeping into my voice. Ruth nodded. "Their greed will be their undoing." That night, Alex and I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. "We need a plan," he said quietly. I turned to him. "We need to protect her and expose them." In the following days, we set our plan into motion. Ruth handed over documents, receipts, anything that tracked Sebastian and Trina's moves. Every revelation fueled our resolve. One evening, our doorbell rang. It was Trina, holding a box of Ruth's things. "Mom left these at the house," she said sweetly. "She's not your responsibility anymore," Alex snapped. Trina's eyes glinted. "We'll see about that." As she left, I exchanged a look with Alex. The battle lines were drawn. Their game was cruel, but we were ready to fight back. Ruth's quiet strength bolstered our determination. We'd protect her from this twisted game and bring Sebastian and Trina's plans crashing down. The stakes were high, but like Ruth said, it was they who had miscalculated. Every weekend, Alex and I visited Ruth at Sebastian's house. Each time, the hostility from Sebastian and Trina was palpable. One Saturday, we found Ruth alone in the living room, gazing absently out the window. "Hi, Mom," Alex said gently. She turned, smiling. "Hello, dear. Leah." Sebastian entered, his face darkening at our presence. "You're early." "We wanted to spend some time with Mom," I said, matching his cold stare. "Don't mind us," Alex added. "We'll just be a while." Sebastian scoffed. "Make it quick. Trina and I have plans." We exchanged a look with Ruth, her eyes calm but aware. We sat and chatted, trying to ignore Sebastian's hovering presence. After a while, Ruth's gaze drifted to her eldest son. "Sebastian, why don't you join us?" His sneer was immediate. "Pardon? I have better things to do than listen to family trivia." "Like plotting against Mom?" Alex shot back. Sebastian's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Alex." Ruth's hand on Alex's arm was the only thing that kept him from saying more. "Let's not quarrel," she said softly. He bit his lip, but stayed silent. Ruth turned to me, her eyes asking 1,000 questions. I forced a smile. "It's just frustrating seeing how you're treated." "Leah," she said, her voice firm, "we'll handle it." Sebastian's phone buzzed, breaking the tension. "Mom, Trina and I are taking over your care. It's obvious you can't live alone anymore." Ruth's composed mask didn't slip. "And what exactly do you mean by that?" Sebastian shrugged. "You'll be moving in with us permanently." My jaw dropped. "Without discussing it?" "She's not in any state to argue," he replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Ruth's eyes locked on mine. "We'll see." The atmosphere was heavy as we left. Back home, Alex punched a wall in frustration. "He's manipulating everything. We can't let him do this." "We won't," I promised. "But we need evidence." The following weeks, we documented every interaction, every comment. Ruth's clarity in those moments was undeniable. She played along, giving just enough to keep Sebastian and Trina at bay. One afternoon, while Ruth and I sat in the garden, she spoke quietly. "They're convinced they've won, but every pawn they move brings them closer to their downfall." Alex joined us, bringing his laptop. "Look at this. Mom, did you sign any documents recently?" Her eyes flickered with a hint of triumph. "Sebastian tried to force my hand. I signed nothing of importance." "That's crucial," Alex said, showing us forged papers. "They're trying to make it look like you did." Ruth's smile was frightfully serene. "They'll regret underestimating me." Days later, I overheard Sebastian and Trina conspiring. "Once she's declared unfit, everything's ours," Trina whispered. Sebastian smirked. "It's only a matter of time." I recorded their conversation, my heart pounding. Our proof was building, and with it, our resolve. The next family dinner, Ruth was the picture of serenity. Mid-conversation, she casually dropped, "I'll be making some changes to my will." Sebastian's fork clattered to his plate. "What changes?" Ruth smiled sweetly. "To protect myself from unforeseen circumstances." "You can't do that," Trina snapped, panic edging her voice. "Oh, but I can," Ruth replied, "and I will." The dinner ended in frosty silence, but we knew we had them on edge now. That night, Alex and I stayed up late, plans unfurling between us. Ruth wasn't alone in her fight. We were a team, and we aimed to expose every deceit, every betrayal. The game was far from over. Ruth's resilience and cunning fortified our resolve. Sebastian and Trina might have started this, but we intended to finish it. Days turned into weeks, and each visit to Sebastian's felt like stepping into enemy territory. Ruth remained a calm force, but the tension was suffocating. Her serene demeanor only seemed to infuriate Sebastian and Trina more. One humid Saturday afternoon, Alex and I were sorting through some of Ruth's papers in the guest room when we heard raised voices downstairs. We hurried to find Ruth and Sebastian in a heated argument. "You can't just take over my life, Sebastian!" Ruth's voice was trembling but firm. "You're not thinking straight, Mom. This is for your own good," Sebastian snarled, his face a mask of frustration. Alex stepped between them. "Stop this, Sebastian. She's not incapable. You have no right." Trina appeared out of nowhere, her face twisted with a mean smile. "You're fighting a losing battle, Alex. Just accept it." "No," Alex shot back. "We're not giving up on Mom." Ruth's eyes met mine with a silent resolve, then turned back to Sebastian. "I may be getting old, but I'm not blind to your intentions." Sebastian's jaw tightened. "You'll regret standing against us." Later that night, as we prepared to leave, Ruth pulled us aside. "I overheard them talking," she whispered, her expression more serious than usual. "What did they say?" I asked, heart pounding. "They plan to get me declared mentally unfit. They need the control." Alex's eyes widened. "How can they do that?" Now Ruth's smile was grim. "They've already got a doctor who'll back their claim." "Then we need to act fast," I said. "We need more evidence." The days that followed were filled with a quiet, simmering tension. Ruth continued to play her role, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. Still, she never wavered. One evening, Alex and I decided to pay a surprise visit. We arrived to find Ruth sitting quietly in the living room, her usually neat hair slightly disheveled. She motioned us to sit. "Listen carefully," she said softly. "I've learned they plan to have me moved to a facility." "What?" Alex's voice was loud, his eyes wide with disbelief. "It's happening soon," Ruth continued. "Sebastian wants to make it look like I can't live at home anymore." Trina suddenly appeared, her eyes narrowing as she noticed us. "What are you doing here?" "We needed to talk to Mom," I said calmly. Trina didn't bother to hide her contempt. "You're meddling where you don't belong. It's too late to save her." Ruth stood up slowly, her eyes never leaving Trina's. "This isn't over." Trina smirked. "It will be soon." We left with a fierce determination burning in our chests. At home, we gathered everything we had. The recordings, the forged documents, every piece of the puzzle that showed Sebastian and Trina's plans. The next morning, we confronted Sebastian and Trina in Ruth's living room. Alex held up a stack of papers. "We know what you've been doing, and we have proof." Sebastian's face went white, but he quickly masked it with anger. "Get out. This isn't your business." "It's very much our business," I said, stepping closer. "We won't let you do this." Trina's eyes flared with anger. "You have no idea what you're up against." Ruth's voice cut through the tension. "Neither do you." That's when I noticed the flicker of doubt in their eyes. They sensed the tide turning. We left them in a stunned silence, our mission clear. Protect Ruth at all costs and bring their schemes into the light. As we walked away, the weight of the conflict didn't seem so crushing anymore. For the first time, we felt hope. The battle wasn't over, but we were prepared for whatever came next. Ruth's strength fortified us, and together we would dismantle the sinister game piece by piece. The following week, our tense standoff with Sebastian and Trina escalated rapidly. Secrets and lies clashed with our determination to protect Ruth. One rainy afternoon, I decided to sneak into Sebastian's office while he was out. The room reeked of arrogance, with its dark, imposing furniture and meticulously organized documents. My hands shook slightly as I rifled through drawers. Footsteps in the hallway made my heart race. I ducked behind the heavy curtains just as Trina entered. She was on the phone, her voice sharp and hushed. "The doctor will declare her unfit by Friday. Make sure the papers are ready. Once that's secure, we'll transfer everything into our names." Recordings. I fumbled with my phone, pressing record as fast as I could, capturing her malicious plan. Our proof was growing stronger by the minute. After Trina left, I carefully placed everything back in its place and slipped out of the office, heart pounding. As Alex drove us home, we replayed the recording. Each word filled us with a fresh wave of anger. "We've got them now," Alex said, gripping the wheel. "This proves everything." The next day, Ruth asked to be taken to a familiar park. We walked through the quiet paths, the sun casting long, comforting shadows. Her eyes were alert, yet her silence indicated contemplation. "They've put their pieces on the board," she finally said. "It's time for us to make our move." Alex nodded. "We're ready. We have enough to take to the attorney." That evening, we prepared the documents and recordings, carefully organizing them to present a compelling case. Each file was another nail in Sebastian and Trina's coffin. The confrontation came sooner than expected. On Friday morning, we received a call. "Mom's gone." Alex's voice was frantic. "They've taken her." I swallowed a rising panic. "Where?" "I don't know. They're not answering." We drove to Sebastian's house, a firestorm of urgency fueling us. Upon arrival, we found the house empty, echoing with a disturbing silence. Panic turned to grim resolve. "Check the study," Alex urged. "There might be clues." In Sebastian's office, we found an itinerary for a private clinic. I snapped a picture and raced back to Alex. "This must be where they took her." "We're bringing her back," Alex said, his voice steely with determination. We reached the clinic in record time. As we barged in, Sebastian met us at the door, fury blazing in his eyes. "You're not supposed to be here, and you're not supposed to kidnap our mother," Alex shouted. Trina stood beside him, smug and defiant. "We have every right. She's unfit." Ruth's voice broke through the commotion. "Funny, considering you needed to forge documents to prove it." Alex stepped forward. "We have recordings of your plans, your threats. It's over, Sebastian." Sebastian's expression flickered with doubt, but quickly hardened into a sneer. "You have nothing." "We'll see about that," Alex replied, holding up his phone. "We're taking this to the authorities." Trina's confidence crumbled as the reality of their situation hit her. "This isn't over," she screamed, but her voice lacked conviction. We escorted Ruth out, her demeanor calm, but her eyes blazing with triumph. On the drive home, she said, "They underestimated us." "That was their first mistake," I replied, glancing at Alex, who squeezed my hand. At home, we sat around the dining table, a quiet victory settling over us. Ruth's strength had been our guide, her resilience our beacon. Sebastian and Trina's vile nature had been their undoing, and with every piece of evidence, we moved closer to justice. We knew the battle wasn't entirely over, but we stood united, ready for whatever came next. Ruth smiled at us, her eyes full of pride. They thought they outsmarted us, but they were playing my game all along. And in that moment, I felt it in my bones. This family was stronger than their deceit, and together we would ensure that justice was served. The following Monday, we gathered our evidence and headed to our attorney's office. The weight of everything we'd collected bore down on us, but Ruth's presence steeled our resolve. Mr. Harris, our attorney, scanned through the documents and recordings with growing astonishment. "This is damning evidence," he said finally. "It's more than enough to take to the authorities." Ruth nodded firmly. "It's time we put an end to their schemes." We left Mr. Harris's office with a sense of guarded triumph. Now the battle was in the hands of the legal system. Our job wasn't finished, but we had struck a decisive blow. Back at home, Ruth shared a quiet moment with Alex and me. "Thank you for standing by me," she said softly. "This wouldn't have been possible without you." "We're a family," Alex replied. "That's what we do." A week later, the police arrived at Sebastian's house. We watched from a distance as officers escorted him and Trina into custody. The sight was surreal, the culmination of all our efforts, finally taking tangible form. "That's just the beginning," Ruth said, watching them being driven away. "Their reckoning is far from over." Later that evening, Ruth invited us to join her in the living room. "There's something you need to know," she said, motioning us to sit. She began recounting the moments she had overheard Sebastian and Trina's plans. It was clear from the start, they didn't just want control, they wanted everything. As she spoke, a chilling determination underscored her words. I decided to pretend, to play into their perceptions. Being underestimated gave me the upper hand. You were brilliant, Mom, Alex said, admiration evident in his voice. Thank you, she replied. But the fight's not over yet. We have to see this through. The true extent of Ruth's cunning became clear when she revealed her final move. I moved my assets into a trust managed by Leah before their plans could take hold. My breath caught. You trusted me with everything? Ruth's eyes softened. You've always had a good heart, Leah. I knew you would protect my legacy. The next few days were a whirlwind. The scandal of Sebastian and Trina's arrest reverberated through the community, disgracing them publicly. Every news outlet carried the story of their attempt to manipulate and defraud their own mother. One evening, a knock at the door revealed an officer with more news. Sebastian and Trina are being charged with elder abuse and fraud. Their trial is set for next month. Alex and I shared a look of relief. Finally, justice was within reach. Ruth's eyes sparkled with a renewed vigor. We'll be there to see it happen. The weeks leading up to the trial were tense, but Ruth's strength anchored us. She remained steadfast, her resolve unwavering. And when the day of the trial arrived, we walked into the courtroom as a united front. Sebastian and Trina looked defeated, far removed from their former arrogance. The evidence we provided painted a damning picture, and their defense crumbled under the weight of their deceit. Ruth took the stand, her testimony a powerful testament to her resilience. I am not a pawn in their game. I am my own person, and I will not be controlled. The verdict was clear and just, guilty on all counts. Outside the courthouse, the reality of our victory settled in. Ruth turned to us, her eyes filled with gratitude. We did it. No, Mom, Alex corrected gently. You did it. We just followed your lead. Ruth's smile was a beacon of the strength and love that had carried us through. This family is stronger together. They underestimated that, and it was their downfall. As we drove home, a sense of closure enveloped us. Ruth's cleverness and our unity had triumphed over deceit and greed. The battle had been long and arduous, but we emerged stronger, bound by the love and determination that made us a family. After the trial, a tense quiet settled over our lives. But beneath the calm surface, we knew the battle wasn't truly over. Sebastian and Trina might be facing jail time, but there were still loose ends to tie up. One evening, Ruth gathered us in the living room. There's something more you need to know, she said. Her eyes twinkled with a mischievous glint I hadn't seen before. What is it, Mom? Alex asked, curiosity piqued. Ruth looked at us with a sly smile. I've been planning one last move. Sebastian and Trina think they've hit rock bottom, but they haven't seen anything yet. I blinked in surprise. What do you mean? Ruth leaned back in her chair, her demeanor confident. Their house, their cars, everything they've accumulated using my money, I've already started the process to have it all seized. They'll have nothing left, Alex said, understanding dawning on his face. Ruth nodded. Exactly. They need to understand the full consequences of their actions. The next day, we worked with the attorneys to expedite the process. The legal wheels turned swiftly, and soon enough, the foreclosure notices were delivered. Facing both incarceration and financial ruin, Sebastian and Trina were left reeling. A week later, we visited the house one last time. The once intimidating mansion now stood eerily quiet, stripped of its former grandeur. Sebastian and Trina were there, gathering their remaining belongings. As we approached, Sebastian's face twisted with anger. You've taken everything from us. No, Ruth corrected calmly. You did that to yourselves. Trina's face was a mask of hatred. You think you've won, don't you? Yes, Ruth said simply. Not because of what I've taken, but because of what I've protected. Sebastian lunged forward, but the presence of our attorney and a couple of officers kept him at bay. This isn't over, he spat. Actually, it is, Alex said, stepping between us and Sebastian. For you, it's all over. We walked away from the scene knowing that Sebastian and Trina's downfall was complete. Ruth's resolve and our unity had ensured they could no longer harm our family. In the days that followed, the mood in our home lifted. Ruth's trust in us had brought a new level of closeness in our family dynamic. We spent more time together, enjoying the simple moments that had once seemed elusive. One sunny afternoon, we decided to have a small celebration in the backyard. As we set up the table, Ruth smiled warmly at us. "This is what family should be," she said contentedly. Alex wrapped his arm around her shoulder. "We owe it all to you, Mom. You taught us what it means to be strong." "And clever?" I added with a grin. "Thank you, both of you," Ruth said, her eyes glistening with tears of joy. "I wouldn't have come this far without you." Under the amber glow of the setting sun, we sat around the table, toasting to our shared victory and newfound peace. It felt like the dawn of a new chapter, one free from the shadows of betrayal. But as we basked in our moment of happiness, a slight worry tugged at the back of my mind. Would Sebastian and Trina truly give up? Had we really seen the last of their vile nature? Only time would tell. For now, though, we chose to live in the present, cherishing the harmony we had fought so hard to reclaim. Ruth's wisdom and courage had taught us that family wasn't just about blood. It was about standing up for each other, no matter the cost. In the end, Ruth's gambit had outsmarted the most cunning adversaries. It had shown us the true strength of our bonds and the importance of justice. And for that, we were eternally grateful. A month had passed since the trial, and life had settled into a new, comforting rhythm. Ruth now lived with us, her presence a constant source of strength and warmth. We all did our best to put the turbulent past behind us, though at times it cast long shadows over our days. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, a knock at the door shattered our peace. Alex went to answer it, and moments later he returned with a letter in his hand, his expression unreadable. "What is it?" I asked, my pulse quickening. "It's from Sebastian," he said, handing me the envelope. A chill ran down my spine as I opened it and began to read. "Dear Alex, it seems you and your beloved Leah have won this round. Enjoy your victory while it lasts. Just remember, a cornered animal is the most dangerous. We will be back." I looked at Ruth, who sat calmly awaiting our reaction. "He's threatening us," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Ruth sighed, her eyes reflecting a mix of annoyance and resolve. "Let them try. We're ready for whatever comes next." True to Ruth's spirit, we continued to live our lives, not allowing Sebastian's ominous message to shake us. We fortified our defenses, both legally and emotionally. Our unity was our strength, and we knew he couldn't break that. One afternoon, Alex and I found Ruth in the garden, tending to her beloved roses. "Mom," Alex said gently, "we need to talk about the future." Ruth looked up, her hands still covered in soil. "What's on your mind?" "We want to ensure that you're always protected," I explained. "Maybe we should formalize the trust and secure everything." Ruth wiped her hands on a cloth and stood up, her expression thoughtful. "You're right. It's time to take the final steps." In the days that followed, we worked with Mr. Harris to solidify Ruth's assets into an irrevocable trust. Each signature and sealed document felt like another layer of protection forming around her, around us. One evening, while we were finalizing the papers, Ruth paused, looking over the documents. "This isn't just about protecting me, she said, her eyes meeting mine. "It's about protecting what's right, ensuring that deceit never wins." We nodded, understanding and appreciating the gravity of her words. Weeks passed, and the threat from Sebastian faded into a distant memory, though we remained vigilant. As summer gave way to autumn, our new life with Ruth felt more natural, a testament to the resilience we all shared. One crisp autumn morning, Ruth called us into the living room. There, she sat with an old, weathered book on her lap. "I want to read you something," she said, opening the book. Her voice filled the room as she recited a passage about justice, love, and the unbreakable bonds of family. "This is what you've given me," she said, closing the book and looking at us with glistening eyes. "A family that stands together, even in the face of adversity." Alex hugged her tight, his voice thick with emotion. "We wouldn't be here without you, Mom. You showed us what it means to truly fight for each other." Ruth smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. "And you showed me what it means to be truly loved and protected." As we sat there, wrapped in the warmth of each other's presence, I realized that this was the true victory. Not just outsmarting Sebastian and Trina, but becoming a family in the fullest sense. We were stronger, more united, and ready for whatever lay ahead. The echoes of past conflicts faded into the background, and we embraced the harmony we had worked so hard to achieve. Ruth's wisdom and courage had led us through the darkest times, and now in the light we found peace and in that peace we carved out a future together, one that Sebastian and Trina could never touch.